Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to look into the dark history of the American Wild West. Listen carefully to my voice and try to understand the new words. The old movies often show the West as a beautiful place with brave heroes, but the real history was very different, dangerous, and dark. Remember, you can change the video speed if the English is too fast for you. Let us start our journey into the past and discover the secrets they hid from you.
Long ago, in the late 19th century, the American West was a massive place with few laws. Today, when we think of a cowboy, we think of a white hero with a shiny gun and a clean hat. But this image is a myth, a fake story made by television and books many years later. In reality, the life of a true cowboy was incredibly hard, dirty, and poorly paid. Most cowboys did not own land or expensive horses. They were just poor workers who took care of cows for rich landowners. They spent long days, sometimes 14 hours a day, sitting on a horse under the hot sun or in the freezing rain. Please note that about 1/3 of all cowboys were actually black or Mexican. In the aftermath of the American Civil War, many former slaves moved to the West because they needed work. White landowners hired them because they could pay them very little money. Think about this. Cowboys spent months moving thousands of cows across the country. This job was called a cattle drive. During these long trips, cowboys did not take baths. They ate poor food like dry beans, and they slept on the cold ground every single night. They were covered in dust and smelled terrible. Do not forget that they also faced big dangers, like wild animals, bad weather, and dangerous diseases. Another secret is that cowboys rarely used their guns to fight. Bullets were very expensive, and carrying a heavy gun all day was not comfortable. Most cowboys only used their guns to scare away wild animals like wolves, not to fight other people in the middle of the street. The famous movie scenes where two men stand in the street and shoot at each other almost never happened. Notice how the movies changed the truth to make the story look exciting. The real cowboys were just tired, poor, and lonely men who worked very hard to survive in a difficult world. They were not rich heroes. They were just simple workers trying to buy food. Always remember that real history is often less beautiful than the movies we see today.
Now, let us talk about the towns in the Wild West. Many people believe that these towns were full of crime and constant gunfights. While there was some violence, the biggest dangers in these towns were actually dirty water, bad food, and terrible diseases. The towns grew too fast because people wanted to find gold and silver quickly. Imagine a town built in just a few weeks with cheap wood. There were no toilets, no clean water systems, and no trash cans. People threw their waste directly into the dirt streets. When it rained, the streets became a thick mud mixed with animal waste. This dirty environment made many people very sick with diseases like cholera and yellow fever. More people died from drinking dirty water than from gun bullets. Also, many towns had very strict gun laws. This is a huge secret that surprises many students of history. When a traveler arrived in a famous town like Tombstone or Dodge City, they had to give their guns to the local sheriff. Look at the historical signs. You could not walk around the town with a pistol. The leaders of the towns wanted to protect business and trade, so they tried hard to keep the streets quiet. However, there was a lot of illegal gambling and drinking. The saloons, which were the local bars, were open all day and night. Men spent all their hard-earned money on alcohol and card games. When men drink too much alcohol, problems always happen. Arguments did start over card games, but people usually fought with their hands or knives, not with guns. The local police or marshals were not always good heroes either. Many times, the lawmen were former criminals themselves. A town would hire a dangerous criminal to be the sheriff because he knew how to scare people. Consider how strange that is. The person protecting you today could be the bank robber from last week. It was a world where the line between good guys and bad guys was very thin.
The darkest secret of the Wild West involves the Native American people. For hundreds of years, many different tribes lived peacefully on the land. They understood nature, hunted buffalo, and had rich cultures. But when the white settlers came from the east, everything changed completely for these tribes. The government of the United States wanted more land for railroads and farming. To get this land, they made many official agreements called treaties with the Native American chiefs. The government promised to leave certain areas of land for the tribes forever. But every time white settlers found gold or good oil on that land, the government broke its promise. They forced the native people to leave their homes and move to small, poor areas called reservations. Listen to the sad truth about the buffalo. Millions of buffalo lived on the green plains of America. The Native Americans depended on the buffalo for food, clothes, and tools. The white leaders realized that if they killed the buffalo, the Native Americans would have no food and would have to surrender. So the government encouraged hunters to shoot millions of buffalo just for fun or for their skins. In a short time, the buffalo almost disappeared completely. This caused a terrible famine, which means a time with no food for the native tribes. Many children and old people starved to death. This was a deliberate choice by the leaders to control the land. It was not an accident, it was a strategy to win the war for the West. The native people tried to fight back to protect their children and their ancestors' graves. There were many battles, but the U.S. Army had bigger machines and more modern guns. Thousands of native people were killed, and their beautiful way of life was destroyed forever. Think about the pain of losing your home and your history. This is the darkest part of the American West that old movies rarely show you. Let us now look at the famous outlaws, the criminals of the Wild West. Names like Billy the Kid and Jesse James are famous all over the world today. Books and songs describe them as cool rebels who stole from the rich to give to the poor. But the historical facts show a very different and violent reality. These outlaws were not kind heroes like Robin Hood. They were dangerous and angry men who killed innocent people for small amounts of money. Jesse James, for example, did not give money to poor people. He kept all the stolen money for himself and his gang to buy houses and weapons. He also shot ordinary workers like bank clerks and train engineers who were just doing their jobs. Billy the Kid was another famous young criminal. Stories say he killed 21 men, one for each year of his life. Historians now know this number is false, but he did kill several people, including police officers. He was not a romantic hero. He was a lonely orphan who became a thief and a killer to survive in a lawless land. Let us now pay attention to how these criminals became famous. In the 19th century, companies in the East started printing cheap books called dime novels. These books told fake, exciting stories about the West to sell copies to city people. They turned dirty bank robbers into handsome heroes to make money. The real people living in the West hated these outlaws because they made life dangerous for everyone. Most outlaws lived very short, stressful lives. They could not sleep peacefully because the police or angry citizens were always chasing them. Most of them died before the age of 30, often shot in the back by their own friends for reward money. Imagine living in constant fear every single day. There was no glory or happiness in the life of a Wild West outlaw. When we watch stories about the West, we usually see only men riding horses and fighting. But women played a massive role in building the West, though their stories were hidden for a long time. Life for women in the West was incredibly lonely and filled with endless hard work. Many women moved to the West with their husbands to start farms. They lived in small houses made of dirt and grass because there was no wood. These houses were dark, dirty, and full of bugs. While the men worked in the far fields, women had to do everything else. They cooked food without modern stoves, washed clothes by hand in heavy buckets, and taught their children. Consider the extreme isolation these women felt. The nearest neighbor was often many miles away. A woman could go for months without speaking to another woman. This loneliness made many women lose their minds or become deeply sad. There were no doctors nearby, so if a child became sick, the mother had to watch them die without any help. However, the West also gave some women new freedoms. Because life was so tough, women had to be strong and independent. Some women ran their own businesses, owned land, and even worked as sheriffs. In fact, the Western states were the first places in America to allow women to vote. The men realized that they could not survive without the hard work of women, so they respected their rights sooner than the people in the East did. There were also famous women outlaws and performers like Calamity Jane and Annie Oakley. They showed the world that women could shoot and ride as well as any man. Remember their names because they broke the rules of their time. Women were the quiet force that kept the Wild West alive during its most difficult years.
Finally, let us look at the great illusion of the Wild West, the gold rush. In 1849 and during the following years, gold was discovered in California and other Western areas. Hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world left their homes to travel west. They all shared the same dream: to find gold in the rivers and become rich instantly. Think about the difficult journey these people took. They walked for 6 months across hot deserts and high mountains. Many died on the road from hunger, exhaustion, or accidents. When the survivors finally arrived in the gold fields, they discovered a harsh reality.
Most of the gold on the surface was already gone. To find gold, men had to stand in freezing river water for hours, digging through heavy mud. It was painful physical work that broke their bodies. Only a tiny number of miners actually found enough gold to become rich. The vast majority of miners spent all their money on expensive food and tools, ending up poorer than when they started. The people who truly became rich were the merchants, not the miners. Clever businessmen sold shovels, boots, and jeans for extremely high prices. Observe this classic pattern in history. When everyone is digging for gold, sell shovels. For example, a man named Levi Strauss made a fortune by selling strong pants to the miners, pants we still wear today, called jeans. The gold rush also caused terrible pollution. Miners used powerful water hoses to wash away whole mountains to find gold. This filled the clean rivers with mud and chemicals, killing all the fish and ruining the environment for decades. The dream of quick wealth destroyed the beautiful nature of the West. In the end, the Wild West was not a land of easy riches and romance, but a place of hard work, broken dreams, and hidden truths.